Hey guys, welcome back to today's video. Today is Thursday, March 18th, 2021, and today we're going to be talking about the House of Representatives Republicans that voted to impeach President Trump and what's happening for them ahead of the 2022 midterm elections. Now, briefly, we're going to go through the 10 Republicans who voted to impeach President Trump, and then we're going to discuss the fact that 9 out of the 10 have primary challengers ahead of the 2022 midterm elections. What usually happens in this instance when there's a primary challenger is that the incumbent typically wins, but this is something that really very much moved away a lot of Trump voters from supporting these traditional Republicans, most notably Liz Cheney, the third highest ranking Republican in the House of Representatives from Wyoming, Dick Cheney, the former vice president under George W. Bush's daughter. So looking at her and the 9 other Republicans, they are defying what their districts asked them to do with the exception of 2, and ultimately voted to impeach President Trump. But let's go ahead and get through this, and we'll talk about what it means for some of these Republicans, whereas others might be safe. So the top 10, not the top 10, the only 10 that voted to impeach President Trump. Number 1, of course, is Representative Liz Cheney. Donald Trump won the state of Wyoming by 43 percentage points. He won it by a very large amount. It's the most partisan state in this country in terms of overall margin, so it's very, very Republican and very much pro-Trump. Liz Cheney defied her district's wishes. There's only one district in Wyoming, so I'll refer to it as a district. Defied her district's wishes by voting to impeach President Trump. Representative Tom Rice, a very, very conservative member in South Carolina, and one of the most conservative Republicans in this entire list, the most conservative Republican at that. Tom Rice, South Carolina's 7th district. Trump won it by 19 points. He voted to impeach President Trump, and he actually was very much pro-Trump. Even in this explanation, he says he voted for him and campaigned for him twice, but this was the ultimate limit, and he voted to impeach President Trump. Representative Dan Newhouse from Washington's 4th Congressional District. Trump won here by 18 percentage points. Pretty much voted to impeach President Trump, made sort of a name for himself, but not in a positive light, at least for the GOP. Representative as Adam Kinzinger, if you remember his name, it's because Donald Trump has mentioned his name so many times, not only him, but Republicans across the country, because they're viewing him as a rhino. Now, if you don't know what a rhino is, it means Republican in name only. Essentially, they're accusing them of being closet Democrats, closet socialists, closet communists, with just the Republican title. Even though obviously none of the voting records of any of these 10 Republicans indicate that, still, this one vote seems to be that finalized thing for a lot of these voters that says, no, you're absolutely not a Republican if you voted to impeach President Trump. So Trump won in his district by 16 points. Representative Anthony Gonzalez already having a very strong primary opposition from Ohio's 16th district. This is in the Rust Belt area. Pretty much someone who was a pretty good proponent of President Trump in the past, but looking at this impeachment vote, obviously not now, just another representative from Ohio. The next one is from Michigan. Again, this Rust Belt region seems to be fairly interesting. Michigan's 6th District Representative Fred Upton, he's been here for a very long period of time, since 1987. Trump won his district by just 4 points. Good relation with Democrats, good relation with Joe Biden, has wear your mask in his Twitter bio, but ultimately voted to impeach President Trump. Representative Jamie Herrera Butler, I believe, in Washington's 3rd district, so another representative from Washington. He was swept in with the Tea Party wave in 2010, but her district is a moderate one. Trump won here by 4 points. So we will see what happens for her, and we're going to talk about some of these primary challengers. Peter, I think it's Mayer, just a freshman. He just won the district that was held by Justin Amash, also someone who was very outspoken against President Trump. So very interesting, right? That it goes from one outspoken Republican who some people would assume would have been a strong Republican voice for Trump, and his, I guess, wing of the Republican Party ultimately ended up going to vote to impeach him. But this is pretty much just him denying the voter fraud allegation from President Trump and using that as a reason as to why he voted to impeach. And then we have Representative John Katko from New York's 24th District. And man, has he been here, defied all expectations. I mean, looking at his district, it's a very Democratic district, which we'll look at in just a moment. Honestly, very interesting that he's been able to survive for so long. And Representative David, is it Valadao? I know I mispronounced it once, and I apologize for that. I should have learned to say it correctly, but I couldn't find a correct pronunciation. All the times whenever I Googled it, it gave me the Google Translate version of saying it. If I'm saying it incorrectly, I apologize for that. Please correct me in the comment section down below. I'll get it right by the next video, I promise that. But this is actually a Biden district. So Representative John Katko and Representative David, I'm botching it, sorry about that, Valadao. This is California's 21st district. These are the only two Democrats, not Democrats, two Republicans from Democratic districts is what I meant to say. So they you can understand why they voted to impeach President Trump. But for the rest of these representatives, they come from Republican districts. So that's the quick rundown of the 10 Republicans that voted to impeach President Trump. But why is this important? Well, if you take a look at the 10 Republicans, 9 of them already have a primary challenger as indicated by this checkmark. What I'm showing you is a new 538 article, which is titled exactly what I'm showing you. And it's very interesting because this impeachment vote was months ago, and we already have primary challengers. I mean, we just seated 2020 freshmen from the 2020 election, and now we already see primary challengers in every single district except for the one in New York, and that's Representative John Katko. Looking at these primary challengers, some of them come from very conservative districts, which could be at a point where they could be screwed over. I mean, South Carolina, Tom Rice, he's from South Carolina's 7th district. The thing about him in particular is that he's at an even worse position than the rest of his Republican colleagues, because the thing is, with the rest of these Republicans, if they enter into a primary, all they need to do is win by a plurality. So let's say they're winning 40 to 45% of the Republican vote, but then multiple pro-Trump challengers run, the vote's going to split, and ultimately Liz Cheney or Dan Newhouse or Fred Upton are going to win their race. But let's say, for instance, you're in South Carolina. This is the only state that has this rule where he needs, in the primaries, where he needs an outright majority in order to win. He needs the runoff system. So if it comes down to a point where he's getting 49% of the vote and the vote is split, the top two will go on, and if it's a pro-Trump candidate, he could lose 51 to 49, even if he defeated his second place opponent by 20, 30 points because of that runoff system. So he could be someone that is easily screwed over simply because of the rules that are in place in his district. For the rest of these Republicans, they will be fine technically, but I can't imagine that it would be super easy making it past a primary if a number of voters here, especially in states like Wyoming and in Washington's 4th district, are not too happy with the way you voted. But when I look at the final 5 right down here, from Fred Upton all the way down, right, we have 5 Republican representatives. 2 of them come from blue districts, and 3 of them come from moderately red districts. I can sort of see why they would cross over, because they don't feel as if this will completely jeopardize their reelection bid. But in the primary system, it is going to get difficult, because had they just not voted to impeach President Trump, they probably would not be experiencing a primary challenger right now. And I'm sure this was in the minds of many Republican representatives as they went to that vote. We already knew President Trump was going to be impeached by the simple majority for the Democrats in the House. So that begs the question, if more of these Republicans were not worried about a primary challenger, would they have voted to impeach President Trump? Chances are they might have. And, looking at the list so far, the 9 out of 10, we could see many of them lose. Primary challenges do actually work, especially after you do such a bold move like voting to impeach President Trump, someone who is very popular amongst the GOP, that ultimately is at a point where if you vote or say anything against him, you could be challenged in the future, and you absolutely will be. And looking at some of these representatives, I mean, they're recently elected. We're talking about red wave years. We're talking about replacing former staunch Republicans that are voting to impeach President Trump. And still, even though they voted to impeach, don't get this wrong, they are still conservative. President Trump just doesn't like them and calls them rhinos because of this one vote. There are no other votes for most of these representatives that indicate they are, not Republicans, as President Trump would put it. And, like I had said, President Trump said at CPAC that we are coming for you, that we are going to primary you. That's what was said, leading to these Republicans, because President Trump wants them out. President Trump wants them to be gone. He does not want to even consider them, to be in the House of Representatives come 2022. And, looking at these primary challengers, it's going to be much easier for the Trump wing to get out the Republican rather than the Democrats to defeat the Republican here. None of these really are Democratic pickup opportunities. Maybe Michigan 6th, Washington 3rd, Michigan 3rd, New York 24th, California's 21st, depending on who runs. But looking at the rest of them, primaries are probably the only way to get out these incumbents, and I can guarantee you the Democratic Party would rather have these incumbents than super staunch conservatives, super pro-Trump conservatives in the House of Representatives. But we will see. And I think this is already an indicator that as soon as President Trump goes against whoever it is, a representative, a senator, they will immediately see a primary challenger practically the next day. We saw so many Republicans announce they were running against these representatives in response to them voting to impeach President Trump. As soon as that happened, we started to see the paperwork getting filed. We started to see the fundraising efforts on behalf of the Trump GOP. And Donald Trump seems to be fully okay with it for very obvious reasons. President Trump is encouraging it. He's saying they will get primaried. Absolutely. He said this to the Republicans that would vote to uphold the election results in a number of states. They will get primaried. After the Capitol insurrection, these Republicans turned their backs on him and said, this is enough. You already said we would get primaried for voting to uphold the election results. Now, the Capitol insurrection just happened, and we're voting to impeach you because they truly believed Donald Trump was part of the incitement of insurrection. And that led to 232 votes in favor, 197 votes against, with 4 not voting. But that 10 number of Republicans that crossed over, I think, is a very interesting indicator that the GOP may have some Republicans, those who voted for it and those who didn't, that do not like President Trump. But this is still very much his party, as shown by these primary challengers. Because realistically speaking, there may be a little-known state senator from Wyoming that might want to run if this had not occurred. But Liz Cheney is probably going to see firm opposition. This is one of the most pro-Trump states in the entire country. And I want to actually take you to take a look at some of these to compare the Trump 2020 margin versus the representative margin. Because some of these Republicans actually do better than Donald Trump in these states. So let's go ahead and take a look. The 2020 House election results, let's go ahead and take a look at the districts that were considered to be toss-ups. New York's 24th, it was considered a toss-up. Biden won it by 9 points. Went to the Republicans by 10 points. We have the California 21st district, which went to the Republicans by a very narrow amount, went to Biden by 10 points. But still, improvement for the GOP relative to Donald Trump. Michigan's 3rd district is considered a toss-up as well. Went to the Democratic Party, let's see here, by 6 points. Donald Trump won that district by 3.3%. So we're already starting to see improvements for some of these Republican members, but the primary is what matters. And I think this is an indicator that we're already starting to see the GOP and the voters in the GOP firm opposition to some of these incumbent Republicans. Let's take a look at the next one. Washington's 3rd congressional district, it was won by 13 points. Donald Trump won Washington's 3rd district by just 3.7%. Michigan's 6th district, that's another area in the same region. Let's scroll up. Michigan 6th won by 16 points. Donald Trump won Michigan 6th by just 4.5%. Anthony Gonzalez in Ohio's 16th district. Let's go ahead and find that. That should be right down here. Let's keep scrolling. Ohio's 16th won by 26 points. Trump won it by just 14 percentage points. In Illinois' 16th district, won by 16 points by Donald Trump. Illinois 16th. Let's go ahead and find it. And I'm not saying Illinois. I'm saying Illinois won by 29 points, but I just needed to clarify that. I felt like I needed to nearly double the amount. It's consistent here. Washington's 4th district won by Trump by 18 points. Let's scroll down to Washington's 4th district, won by 33 percentage points. Tom Rice won by Trump won by 18.6 in South Carolina's 7th district. We can scroll up and find that Tom Rice won by 24 points. And then Liz Cheney in the state of Wyoming, Trump won here by 44. Liz Cheney won this district by 44 as well. So she seems to be the only one on par, just slightly ahead. But overall, what do you notice? That these Republicans that voted to impeach President Trump did better than President Trump. So I think that they see this as an opportunity that, hey, they still have some of that vote, sometimes double the amount of vote that Donald Trump did, which means they're getting 16, 70% of those, or actually in this case, 30, 40% of those Biden voters to cross over, which might be enough to push them over the top. But the primary is truly what matters when it's closed to just Republicans. If it's not an open primary state, they probably won't be saved by Democrats or independents that voted for them. They possibly will be in the general election. I can't imagine, even though Trump Republicans don't want them in there, that they would vote for a Democrat instead. But looking at the House results compared to Donald Trump, these Republicans have consistently outperformed Donald Trump. But the problem is we're reaching a primary stage where they could just be ousted by their own voters. And, when they voted to impeach President Trump at that point, Americans saw Donald Trump leave office with most of them wanting him to be removed entirely. Not a situation of, oh, he was impeached again. No, they wanted him out. They wanted him removed by the Senate with 67 votes. President Trump's popularity rating was very, very low at that time as well. His approval rating was just 38.6%. He had the highest disapproval rating of his entire presidency on his final day. And now Joe Biden seems to be a more popular president. And at this point, as we started to see those numbers differentiate with Biden being more popular and Trump being very unpopular, a lot of these Republicans might have realized that, hey, I was able to win my election by double the amount Donald Trump did in my district because I won over some of those Biden voters. I might be able to win re-election in 2022 without Donald Trump's down ballot benefit by the same around the same margin by voting to impeach President Trump. But also some of them might have realized, this impeachment vote is more important than my re-election bid. I don't care if I'm primaried in this instance. This is how I want to vote. This is how I should be voting as a representative. And that's likely what drove a lot of these Republicans who've experienced the Capitol insurrection firsthand, who experienced having to cower under their desks or to evacuate or to put on gas masks to avoid what had happened. A lot of these Republicans, many of them were fearful. Many Democrats were fearful. And while ultimately the majority of the Republicans, 90% of them, ended up voting to pretty much not impeach President Trump and to consider, most of them in the House still voted to uphold, to go against the election certification in these states. It's just ultimately, I think it comes down to just partisan politics. But these 10 Republicans broke ranks, but now they're being punished for it. And I think this is going to be not the list of a number of Republicans, not only in the House, not only in the Senate, but in governorships, in state legislatures that have been outspoken against President Trump. But now that this is Trump's party, there's no way to get around the undeniable fact that these Republicans are going to listen to him. They are going to primary who he asks, and that is the very unfortunate reality for these representatives, that just because they voted to impeach President Trump after the Capitol insurrection, it seems as if many of them, possibly more than half, their entire political futures could be doomed by simply one vote, and they're being labeled as rhinos when their entire voting history suggests otherwise. And that is likely the future of the GOP as we know it. So thank you guys so much for watching this video. Make sure to comment down suggestions below. Subscribe on the left if you haven't already, and check out the Instagram and Twitter. At the bottom left of the screen, there's also a Discord server for you to go ahead and join. On the screen, there's a video you can watch, and then a playlist for the 2022 midterm election analysis videos. Again, thank you guys so much for watching, and I will see you all later today.